Hi guys, it's Angie with Fun Endeavors Tie-Dye Lab. Today let's make a reverse dyed geode shirt. I've pre-washed the shirt, but it's just damp with plain water. I haven't soaked it in any soda ash solution yet. The shirt is a yellow color, kind of like about the color of a banana, I would say. I'm going to do a single geode tie on this shirt, so I'm going to find an area in the lower portion of the shirt where I want to start the geode, and I'm going to use my washable marker to just make a mark so that I don't lose track of that center portion. The geode center is not actually going to look like this or have this shape. I also have the shirt turned inside out because I'm going to leave this shirt tied through this entire process, the process of removing the color and adding the dye. I'm going to grab the area of the shirt where I made my mark for my center of my geode, lift the shirt up off the table and just kind of give it a little bit of a shake, let it fall naturally, and I'm only grabbing one layer of fabric. Then I'm going to slide my hand down to the very bottom of the shirt, and that's where I'm going to start tying my geode lines. I'm going to tie my geode lines from the bottom going in toward the center of the geode. And if you notice, as I'm tying, I'm kind of messing up the fabric. I don't want it to be perfect. I do want there to be wrinkles and weird folds in the inside. That's what makes more interesting lines and shapes inside the geode. When I get down to the end, or what is the center portion of my geode, I'm going to start tucking that fabric down inside. That's going to give some really interesting little areas down at the center portion of the geode. I'm also going to split my geode, and the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to take my sinew down through the piece of fabric at the very end. You can make your geode centers as large or as small as you want. This one's not going to be super big, but I'm taking my sinew straight down through this fabric. And I'm going to go ahead and tie one side at a time. And when I get out to the end of this geode center, I am going to wrap my sinew back down the fabric. Since I'm going to do a reverse dye process on this and put this shirt through several different processes, if I cut my sinew off at this point, it would have more of a tendency to unravel, and I don't want that. So I'm going to wind the sinew back to where I split my center of the geode in half, and then I'm going to tie the other center of the geode. You know, you can go ahead and split these areas down even more if you want to. You can make as many centers to your geode as you'd like. Once I have this center portion tied, I'm going to wrap the sinew back down, and I'm going to stop it in an area of the shirt that's a little bit fatter, that has a little bit more fabric, so that I can pull a really tight line on my sinew. I've zoomed in and left the video at real time for this portion so that you can get a better look at what I'm doing on the shirt. I was almost out of sinew on my sinew puller, so I just went ahead and wound it a little further down the shirt until I was out of sinew. For the color removal process or the reverse dye process, I'm going to use a product called Out White Brite Laundry Whitener, and I find it at my local Walmart in the laundry aisle. It's usually close to the bleach products, even though it doesn't contain any chlorine and it's not actually a bleach product. That's why I like to use this for a reverse dye or dye discharge or color removal process, is because it's not going to damage the fabric the way that bleach would. If you can't find any at one of your local stores, I have a link down below in the description for this video for where you can purchase some from Amazon. By the way, I also have links for lots of the items that I'm using in my videos, as well as I list all the colors that I use on my shirts in that description as well. So I'm going to start by sprinkling the Out White Brite very liberally over the top of the shirts. I have a lot of items in this container. I've placed them down inside of a plastic tub or tote, and you can see the yellow shirt. It's kind of partially buried, but you can see the yellow peeking through. I'm also doing this process outside because the Out White Brite does have a smell that I don't want inside. And I'm wearing my respirator for this entire process because I don't want to inhale any of the powder or the fumes from the Out White Brite. Now I'm going to pour a couple of pots of boiling hot water over the top of these shirts. And it's kind of hard to see when I added the first pot of hot water because there's so many shirts. But the Out White Brite kind of starts to fizzle, bubble, and you can see it starts to remove the color almost immediately. Not only am I going to add a couple of large pots of boiling hot water, but I'm also going to add a little bit more Out White Brite. You know, I don't know that I've ever done this many items at one time, but as long as I can get them mainly or mostly covered in the Out White Brite solution, I should be just fine. I'm pouring my second pot of boiling hot water over the top, then I'm going to add a little bit more of the Out White Brite. I'm also going to use a pair of metal tongs which I purchased from the Dollar Tree dollar store. I mean, I guess you call them tongs, they're shaped a little differently. I tried using the ones that had the silicone ends on them, but the water is too hot to use the silicone ones, and quite frankly, they're too lightweight. They would break after about the first use. I use these tongs to move the shirts around in the Out White Brite solution so that they get well saturated and submerged underneath the solution. You can see some of the shirts that I tied are not tied as tightly as the others. I say shirts. Part of these are shirts, part of these are dresses, but the ones that are tied more loosely obviously get the color removed fairly quickly because they can get fully saturated with the Out White Brite solution really quickly. So I'm going to move those to the top, move some of the thicker, bigger folds down underneath the solution. I'm also going to continue adding a little bit more of the Out White Brite powder periodically. Some of the items that have had the color removed, I'm going to go ahead and take them out of the container and give them a rinse. This yellow shirt is one of those. The color was removed fairly quickly from this shirt, so I went ahead and took it, as well as a few of the other items, to my utility sink and I rinsed them in cold water. I left the shirt tied and all the rest of these items tied through this entire process. I'm not going to untie them until at the very end after the shirt is completely finished. Even though I'm getting ready to remove this shirt, I'm going to go ahead and speed up the rest of the video so that you can see how the Out White Brite worked on the rest of these shirts and how I rinsed them out before I washed them. After I rinsed the yellow shirt in cold water, I went ahead and placed it in my washing machine along with all the rest of these items in this tote. Then I washed them all on a cold water cycle using some Dharma's Professional Textile Detergent. I like to wash my reverse dyed items or any items that I use Out White Brite on before I apply the dye. I know some people just do a rinse or they try to soak them, but I don't like that smell left remaining in my shirts. I've heard some people complain about it, but I haven't really had that issue, and I think it's probably because I wash my shirts in between the Out White Brite process and applying the dye to the shirts. I get out that residue, that smell. I mean, I'm not going to get out all of the residue and smell, but I get out a majority of it. Then after I take all these items out of my washing machine, I'm going to leave them tied and put them in a soda ash solution to soak for about 20 to 30 minutes. I want to make sure that soda ash solution gets into the center of all of these folds on these tightly tied shirts. By the way, too, if you are soaking a shirt that has previously been a different color, whether you dyed it that color or whether you removed part of the color, you need to expect some of the color to come out into your soda ash solution. So I keep a soda ash solution that I use for reverse dyes or previously dyed items. What I normally do is if I've had a soda ash solution that I've been using for a couple of weeks and I've just done a new batch of reverse dyes, I'll just repurpose that soda ash solution for my reverse dyes and mix up a new batch of soda ash for my regular white shirts. I also don't keep that reverse dyed soda ash solution sitting around too long because it usually gets kind of a funky smell because of the color and the things that come out into the soda ash solution from these reverse dyed shirts. It's not so bad if it's a previously dyed shirt, but the reverse dyed shirts, they just leave a little bit of that residue down inside of the soda ash solution. So I usually just keep it around for a few days while I'm doing a specific batch of reverse dyes, and then I dump it and mix up another soda ash solution. After I wrung this shirt out of my Panda spin dryer, I went ahead and put it aside and allowed it to dry out completely before I began applying the dye. Here again, this is a really thick fold, and I want to allow it to dry out completely so that I get better color saturation in the center of the fold. If you'd like a little more information about this, I have a blog post out on my website which discusses this topic in more detail, and I have a link to my website down below in the description for this video. For this shirt, I'm going to use some greens and other earthy colors. I thought they would pair well with the yellow lines on the geode. To dye the shirt, I've placed it inside of a plastic colander, which I have stretched over the top of a plastic tub or tote. I've placed the shirt on one side of the colander and a couple of silicone cake molds to separate it from the rest of the colander. Then to hold all of that in place, I've used some of my softball and baseball size wiffle balls. Since this shirt is completely dry, I'm going to lightly spray it with a little bit of soda ash solution so that the dye sticks to the top better. I'm going to randomly apply the dye to the shirt, and I'm not going to apply one single dye color to a single section of the shirt. Instead, I'm going to be random about that as well. I think it looks really cool to add dye colors kind of in between the sinew lines and then split the sections by adding 2 or 3 different dye colors to a section. So, just like nature is very random, I want this shirt to look very random. I think that's what makes it interesting and fun and more appealing to look at. So let me give you the dye colors. Like I said, I have them listed below. They are chartreuse, olive drab, Havana brown, kiwi, harvest wheat, camel, and ecru, which are all pro-chemical and dye colors. I'm not going to put the ecru on the main portion of the geode right now. I'm going to sprinkle that over the top at the end. Then I'm going to use kitty litter and moose, which are both special order colors from Dharma. You can usually still purchase those out on Facebook from a group called Tie-Dye Supplies Marketplace, and I've got a link to that down below as well. Then I'm also going to use moss green and avocado from Dharma. The last color I'm going to use is willow from Dye Spin. And if for some reason you don't have part of these colors, just feel free to either leave them out or substitute them with other earthy colors that you have. So normally at this point, I would add an additional sprinkle of dry soda ash over the top of the dye, but I got distracted and I didn't do that. However, I'm going to do that later though. So I'm going to go ahead and add on my ice. Then I'm going to place some of the ecru from Pro Chemical and Dye over the top. Ecru is a pretty mild color. I'm just using it for a little bit of dimension to the shirt and to maybe fill in any of the gaps in the dye on the shirt. Then I'm going to add an additional sprinkle of dry soda ash over the top. The dry soda ash that I add over the top is really just kind of like an insurance policy. I'm going to add quite a bit of ice to the shirt, and I want to make sure that I don't accidentally rinse out the original soda ash from the soda ash soak. This shirt needs the soda ash to raise the pH so that the dye will bond with the fabric. I'm going to place the shirt aside and allow the ice to melt, and after it melted, I came back and added probably about 3 more layers of ice to this shirt. I still had quite a bit of dye left sitting on top, so I went ahead and just kept adding ice to dissolve that dye, push it through the shirt, and to make sure the center of my shirt was well saturated with color. After the last layer of ice melted, I allowed the shirt to process for about 24 hours before I began rinsing it. I did my normal rinse process by taking the shirt to my utility sink, rinsing it in cold water to rinse out the soda ash. Then I went ahead and untied the shirt and I warmed the water up to hot and rinsed in hot water to rinse out the excess dye that didn't bond with the fabric. Then instead of rinsing for a long time, I ran some really hot water in my utility sink, added a little bit of Blue Dawn dish detergent to the water, and placed the shirt inside to soak. When the water cooled off, I changed it out and I continued that soaking process until my water was remaining almost clear. Then I put the shirt, along with some Dharma's professional textile detergent, into my washing machine and I washed the shirt using a hot water cycle. Okay, so at this point, the shirt has been washed, dried, and ironed, and let's see what it looks like. Okay, so what do you guys think? I think this one looks really pretty. I really like the earthy tones with the yellow lines and the yellow center of the geode. I tried to choose green colors that had more of that yellow hint to them. You know, greens can either go a little bit more yellow or a little bit more blue. And so I chose the greens that went a little bit more yellow, like the avocado and the olive. And I think they look really pretty on this shirt. I also like the interesting center to that geode. I do have quite a bit of the yellow left on the inside. And I mean, when I did the reverse dye process, it ended up yellow. So I don't know if I didn't get enough of the out white Brite in the center of that, if I had it tied maybe too tightly, or if I didn't get enough dye over the top because those areas were so small. I'm not entirely sure, but I think it looks really cool. You know, because this shirt was kind of the color of a banana, and then I did the reverse dye process on it, it did remove part of the color, but it wasn't a huge difference. You know, like when you do a black shirt and it goes from black to taupe, it's a very noticeable difference in color. This one, it went from a banana color to a lighter yellow. So I'm not sure in that center portion, the yellow part that's left, if that was the original color yellow or if that was the new reverse dyed color yellow. But I think it looks pretty, and I like the designs that happen on the back of the shirt with single geodes. You know, there's not really a design per se, but yet there is with the sinew lines. I don't know, I think it looks really cool. I think it's a pretty shirt, and I hope you guys do too. Please drop me some comments down below and let me know what you think about this one. I think this is probably the first time I've done a yellow shirt. You know, yellow's not really my color, so I don't work with yellow quite as much as some of the other colors. And I thought this one would be a fun one to try, and I'm very pleased with the outcome. So if you guys have enjoyed the video, I sure would appreciate it if you would like it, and if you'd subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you'll hit the bell, you'll receive a notification whenever I upload a new video. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you have a great day.